whole time. Excuse me. So probably just started recording as I'm clearing my throat. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the first slide of the introduction to the Red Hat toolset, if you like, that supports developers in the container and cloud native world. So although we've put some SFA branding on this as well, we are mainly saying things that Red Hat want us to say, and of course that's perfectly acceptable since we're covering the Red Hat toolset today. So be aware that there is probably some marketing content, but obviously we wholeheartedly support all the things being said. So first one, this is a something that was also mentioned in the sort of introductory video we did. That there is essentially a software-driven explosion at the moment. It's been going on obviously since 2018, according to the IDC. And the idea is that there'll be 500 million new logical apps created. This was the prediction. I don't know how close they are to achieving that prediction. We're obviously well into that period now. But the idea, the point we're trying to make here is that the number of logical apps being created in the next 5 years is going to be equal to the number built over the past 40 years. So there is an explosion of software development going on. Could I remind everyone please to mute themselves as well, because I'm hearing the odd clunk coming through. So what people are expecting, what customers are expecting from their IT staff, I suppose, are on-demand services, delightful interactions, access from anywhere, and a personalized experience. And more than ever, the ability to create the value that the business and customers require depends on the ability to develop and deliver high quality applications fast. You've probably heard this before, but this is very important. So how do you build, drive these, meet the expectations and keep the lights on? And so we're looking here at the chunk here that talks about building more modern applications. So we're kind of giving you a sort of roadmap, I suppose. And obviously optimizing the IT you have, integrating your apps more, and a lot of companies moving into the cloud, adding and managing the cloud infrastructure. We're talking here about kind of trying to leverage the sort of cloud infrastructure more with the applications you're building. And of course, we're moving on also to automation and management of IT. But using the cloud, really leveraging what the cloud offers you is very important. And we're talking, you know, to some extent about lift and shift, but we're also talking about moving on then to a more acceptable cloud, things that were cloud native. So and we need a new innovation model to, this is the argument that we need to move a different approach to building our applications. It isn't just sticking stuff on the cloud. There are other approaches which will combine to give you the ability to produce these applications fast and please your customers and your business. So principles of DevOps and CI/CD are seen as an important thing to underpins the cloud native approach. Excuse me, as is the idea of having a microservice architecture. Underpinning also this, we have the idea of containers. And of course, the platform that the containers run on is important, and underneath all of that is the cloud. So we'll look at some of these as we go through. Okay, so why do we go cloud native? Well, these things are being shown now to give us the opportunity to produce delivery of services faster, to increase the quality of services, and to reduce risk when we deliver them. And how to build apps for the cloud? Well, there are lots of clouds out there now, lots of people providing cloud infrastructures. They could be on-premise, they could be hosted by one of the big companies. But the main thing is that building apps for the cloud follows similar principles. Write once, run anywhere. Well, we heard that before in the past with applications built in things like Java. That was one of the key things, write once, run anywhere. The beauty of that, we used to say was you write once, run anywhere, but actually you write once and you debug everywhere. So what's actually happened now is a little more predictable. Now we have containers in the cloud. So, you know, this is an evolution, and we'll see in a moment, there's a slide which makes that clear. We are moving, and cloud is the next approach that makes things simpler. But as we just said at the start, it's not just the technology. So yes, the technology and the way that you host your applications, your new cloud native applications is great. But teams, culture and technology go together. And we want to be able to talk about those aspects too. So yeah, we thought this is called digital Darwinism. I prefer to call it an evolution. I think Darwinism sounds a bit harsh. When I think about Darwinism, we think about you know, the ones that don't get with the program won't survive. I suppose that's kind of what we're saying. But you can see that there's a path suggested here. Reorganization to DevOps, a lot of companies are moving to that. The self-service and on-demand infrastructure that the cloud provides. Automation and continuous delivery come next. And then you have advanced deployment techniques and microservices, if you like, the icing on the cake. And obviously, we're talking about the fact that if you are going to deliver these cloud native applications as quickly as your customers demand, and by customers, I mean your business customers and your external customers, then you need all kinds of approaches. But key to those at the current understanding is we need containers. Containers are easily hosted in Kubernetes. It's building a big drive at the moment in terms of customers and users. OpenShift, the argument is that OpenShift is the best platform to deliver those applications because it adds extra value to the container and Kubernetes approach. These things in the middle, the cloud native applications, AI and machine learning, analytics, Internet of Things, these are all things which can come out of the value you create by running your applications in the cloud in containers. So when it comes to Red Hat, and this is obviously, as I say, hosted or sponsored by Red Hat, hosted by Estefan. Red Hat are providing you with a set of tools, and these are the tools you'll get to use during the labs. So part of the, as I said, part of the drive of this meeting is for you to have a go at some of these things. So the development platform provided by Red Hat is these three things here that we're talking about: the OpenShift container platform, or OCP as it's sometimes called, which is essentially Kubernetes at sort of at a higher level, because Kubernetes plus with a DevOps flavor to it. We also have middleware application services and service mesh, and tools specifically aimed at developers to produce extra productivity on the Kubernetes type platforms. And these are hosted on Kubernetes as well. And these are some of the Red Hat Code Ready products. So I'm going to quickly go through some of these elements because they lead in naturally into the labs, and these are the things that you will be looking at in detail when you do the labs. So firstly, we'll look at OpenShift this strapline: automate your Kubernetes application operations with DevOps in mind. So it is essentially Kubernetes, but you could say Kubernetes plus plus, or is Kubernetes plus extra enterprise elements, it contains extra things such as full stack installation, automated, seamless updates, and various other things that make it a sort of enterprise hardened version of Kubernetes. And yeah, you can still use Kubernetes, but OpenShift gives you more, and hopefully this will persuade you of that. And the most recent version of OpenShift, OpenShift 4, which is what we'll be using on these labs, has kind of further enhanced Kubernetes. You can see also that it's based on Core OS, which is Red Hat Enterprise Linux offering, which is a special small footprint version of Linux. And obviously Kubernetes sits above that. There's a lot of automated operations here and lots of services that help you manage your clusters. And we also have things like service mesh and then a set of developer tools. So the argument is this is Kubernetes, but smarter. And it's also hardened for the enterprise. So there's a lot of extra things in there, hardened, but also simplified to make development easier. So developer productivity, we already said that one of the key things that the clouds and containers want to offer you is faster development, developer productivity. And we've all seen something like the CI/CD or DevOps cycle, where you see that you build, test, deploy, monitor, review, and so on. So this is essentially saying the same thing, but in a different format. We're talking about various things, including self-service provisioning. So you help your developers by quickly giving them the ability to get up and running with their ability to develop code. The environments are consistent. We help them automate their build and deploy pipelines using CI/CD. We help them manage configurations more easily, and we also have the facilities to monitor with logging and metrics, and we'll see some of those today. And a lot of this is built into the OpenShift platform. You can see that underneath at the bottom of this slide, we're seeing some of the things that underpin it also that live on top of OpenShift. The languages, the database, the application services, and the Spring and Java EE approaches, and the microservices architecture, and so on. So adding to OpenShift 4 is also service mesh and serverless. And you can see that service mesh is an approach to, if you like, what glues your containers together. And it gives you microservices, applications can talk to each other more easily, and it combines things like Istio and other industry standard projects. And it means that your security and your network segmentation of your microservices, a lot of it is hidden from your developers, but it's built in. And one thinks of things like the sidecar pattern, which allows for this to happen. So service mesh is kind of building on industry patterns, which speed up and make things easier for the developers. We also have OpenShift serverless, so we're moving more into function as a service using Knative frameworks. We're not covering any of this on the labs today, but these are things that can be discussed in the future if you wish. Just get in touch with us. but there are things provided within the OpenShift 4 family, if you like, that allow you to build things like serverless functions using Knative approaches, and support also for Microsoft Azure. So yeah, why do people choose OpenShift? Again, this is the marketing side, obviously. It is Kubernetes. At base, it's Kubernetes, but it's been incremented, if you like, by various. It's a trusted enterprise Kubernetes. It's been hardened. It's more secure. It gives a cloud-like experience, but there's also a lot of things that empower developers. And the things at the bottom show that Red Hat is committed to these open source innovation projects, and they sort of pay it forward, if you like, into the open source projects, and then they take those open source projects and harden them and use them in the OpenShift products that they provide. Excuse me. So Red Hat middleware then. This is the second of those three keystones we talked about way back. So Red Hat middleware, things that Red Hat provide to make the faster development using OpenShift possible. Some of these slides are a little bit more, should we say, abstract, but you can see that essentially what we are trying to move towards is away from a waterfall approach into an agile, incremental, and iterative approach. These are things. This has been a dream for many generations now, I suppose, of developers, and we've certainly had a history of trying to find the sort of coding and development nirvana. And I suppose the argument is that each new approach takes you one step closer to that ability. So where we are now with the sort of containerized approach we're talking about, we're getting even closer. So key to incremental development, and this is obviously what we're talking about mainly using things like OpenShift and Kubernetes, is the container. And the container, of course, is the small piece of the small base of code, if you like, that's running in the cloud or in your environment. And the important thing, though, is what your developers are interested in is not the container itself. So we should bear in mind that the container itself is really just a bit like we had the JVM in the past, the Java Virtual Machine. You weren't focusing entirely on that. You were focusing on the code that runs inside it. So this blue box, the workload, is what we're really wanting to focus on as developers. That said, containers are supposed to simplify things, but doing containers at scale is still difficult, it's hard. So what the container runs on is important, it matters. And so the platform is important. And what's inside the container also matters. So obviously the code that you write as developers, or that your developers write if you're not a developer, is obviously the key thing. But underneath that code, beneath that, we have various layers right down to the operating system. That's also important. And what's between the containers also matters. So, and I should say that the integration level kind of works on different levels, but the integration, of course, of data and processes is helped by various products such as Camel and Fuse, which are also provided by Red Hat. But the glue, if you like, between your containers, using things like service mesh and your integration of your processes across your microservice architecture when you get there, excuse me, is very important. So what's between the containers also matters. As I mentioned earlier on, Red Hat also provide a set of middleware elements which allow you to provide these frameworks to build your code, and obviously things that Spring Boot approaches and various other standardized industry approaches, Node.js, and so on. There's also a new thing called Quarkus, which you will get to see during the labs. So Red Hat are not just providing you with OpenShift, which is the sort of, if you like, the platform your containers run on. They're also providing you with a set of developer approaches with various other services they provide. Moving on to the development side of things, the developer tools themselves. This is what we'll be looking at also during the labs. Excuse me. So the developer services that OpenShift provides, we'll talk about some of these, the IDE, the developer console, the developer CLI, build automation, and obviously continuous integration, continuous delivery approaches. So talking about IDEs, if you like, we're talking about the Red Hat Code Ready portfolio. Well, not just IDEs, actually, some of them are IDEs, but some of them are also ways to run. But they're all called Code Ready. So Code Ready workspaces, this is the one you'll be using during the lab, it's actually Kubernetes cloud hosted integrated development environment based on Eclipse Che. I was always originally, I was never sure how to pronounce Che, but I understand now that it's named after a place in the Ukraine called Cherkasy. I probably don't pronounce that right. I'd hoped it was pronounced Che based on Che Guevara because it's revolutionary, but no, apparently it's Che, but anyway. It's Red Hat Code Ready Workspaces. That's the Red Hat branded version of it. You'll use that in the labs. Red Hat Code Ready Containers is a local install of OpenShift 4. So you can actually get up and running for developing against OpenShift 4 very quickly. Code Ready Studio is your Red Hat tool based on desktop Eclipse. So good old full fat Eclipse, if you like that kind of approach. There are arguments for and against, which I won't go into here. Some people prefer to have a desktop IDE. Some people prefer to get their developers up and running with a simplified environment, such as provided by Che. There's also Code Ready Builder, which is a set of tools for building C++ type functions on RHEL, and Code Ready Toolchain, which is a DevOps toolchain with various other tool sets included. Code Ready Workspaces, won't spend too long on this because you will be using it, but as I say, it's basically browser-based web IDE hosted in Kubernetes, and it's a Red Hat version, as I say, of Eclipse Che, and you can enable it via an operator. You'll see that, as I say, quite often during the labs. And the OpenShift also supports pipelines. There's a CI/CD pipeline provided by OpenShift. This, again, I won't cover in great detail. This is talked about the latest version, OpenShift 4, supports something called Tekton. Tekton is the latest approach to pipelines spun out of Knative pipelines. And I should point out that during the labs, we'll be using good old-fashioned Jenkins. But there's nothing wrong with Jenkins, it does the job. So Tekton is there. If you want to use it, Jenkins still works fine. Again, pros and cons, but I won't go into them here because you'll be using Jenkins. And I should also say that what is true for Jenkins is also true for Tekton. So, anything you learn about with Jenkins, it gives you the same benefits, if you like. The OpenShift Developer Console, this is something provided for developers, as the name hints. So it gives you a developer-centric UI that lets you visualize your OpenShift projects and your containers. And it's been designed to make life a bit easier for developers. And there are also plugins for Microsoft, if you're into that sort of stuff. And there's also some dependency analytics part of the tool chain, which someone got a bit noisy for a moment there. Part of the tool chain tool set, which will even go as far as warning you if it looks like you're going to be breaking any vulnerability type approaches. So these tool sets are made available by Red Hat, and they make it easier for developers to develop, and obviously they support these tools themselves, and they help you can learn from their experience with these tools. There are further things that Red Hat can offer, including the innovation labs, which is a way of, I guess, of kick-starting yourself with these DevOps, OpenShift approaches, containerized approaches. And Red Hat will actually take your team through a set of labs. And this is labs, not in the sense that I've been talking about labs. I'm using the word labs to mean exercises where you try things out. But these are labs as in laboratories, i.e. you take your team to a Red Hat laboratory and you immerse yourself in the ideas of DevOps and approaches to building things quickly and incrementally. So with agile approaches, obviously. So that's an interesting approach if you want to take that. And there are 4, or at least there were at the time of this slide, there were 4 innovation labs. Obviously, we're a little bit locked down, so I don't think many of them probably will have been open for a while, but I expect they will open again soon. And obviously, the other thing to be aware of is that Red Hat is constantly looking at modernizing and migrating their solutions. They help you take what you've got currently, moving it into the cloud, and they help you if you've got already cloud-based solutions but want to learn more about DevOps and optimizing the approaches you do have. Okay, so that's the Red Hat stuff. And if you're interested and got further questions, by all means ask them. And if you do have questions and want to ask them in the chat, I will try to answer some of them as we go through. But obviously what we need to do next is move you onto the ability to do your labs. So there is a link which I will need to post, won't I, in the chat for the meeting. And that does that mean I have to remove the slide? No, okay. Give me one moment while I get that link into a position where I can copy that. Probably should have thought about this in advance. Part of the fun of meetings. See if I can access the chat without losing the full screen. Because this is the fun of Zoom. Seems not. Oh, hang on. Let me just. I do have access to the chat. Okay, so I've posted a link in the chat. Hopefully people can see that. Can anyone confirm that they can see the link in the chat?
No, we haven't got that, Kevin, yet.
I've got it.
Okay.
Oh, you got it. Okay, great.
Oh no, Kevin sent it just to me.
Just to you? How did I do that?
That's because you're special, Pat.
Oh, the beauty of Zoom calls.
You've got to have two everybody.
Okay, let's try. So I thought that was straight into the chat, but no, you're right. It's just.
We already shared it, so it's there.
Yeah,
Now.
I've just sent it. I typed
Oh,
it
okay.
up.
I've shared it as well. Thank you, everybody. See, that's
That's
the good thing of having developers on the call, isn't it? Yeah, they get it
Jeez.
done. Get it done quickly.
Community spirit.
Oh, and now okay. Hopefully, I'm still on the presentation as well. Can people still see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so once you've got that link, you should be able to click on that, and it will give you, take you into a place where you can log in with an email address and the password that's been provided there, which is sort of Red Hat, but with numbers. Okay.
Kevin,
Yes.
I'm just going to hand over control to the of the session to you as I leave. If there's any problems, then contact me.
Okay. So yeah, so basically the next thing to do when you do have your when you have created your user, you'll be given a username. I tried it earlier on and it definitely worked for me, and I was user 1. And you're then asked to choose the module, I think. Is that right? I can't remember what happens next, but you are then taken into, when you choose the module 2, which is the one we'll be doing, you are, hopefully, you'll be given your workshop environment will have user 1 already at the top, or user 2, or whatever you are, user 34 or whatever.
I'm not sure for others, but generally it's 4 modules with description, not
Yes.
1, 2, 3, or 4. Which one's 2?
Number 2 should be 2, the second one.
Oh, okay. Debugging, monitoring, that one.
That's the one we're doing, yes. Debugging and
Okay.
monitoring. Well, we're kind of doing a bit of, well, we're not doing much in the way of development. We are bringing up developer tools, and we're debugging and monitoring as we go on. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, you'll choose the module 2, and it should have your username already at the top. And if it doesn't, you can enter it. Just so you know, I'm just giving you an example. I mean, you're going to see this when you start to do the labs. But that's what the product you're working on looks like when you're looking at it in OpenShift. This is just a sort of sanity check, I suppose. I mean, you'll see it once you start working through the labs, you'll see it. And it looks something like this on the product interface. So you're kind of working on this product. Module 1, which we're not doing, was the one that helped you to build that from a sort of, or move it into a container via a lift and shift approach. But as I say, we're not actually doing that. So you've already got this product, and the module 2 instructions tell you how to build this from a GitHub repository. We'll also, so what I'm suggesting we do, I mean, to go back to the agenda, was we do steps 1 to 3. And then we have a coffee break, but I will bring everyone together anyway at 11 o'clock. I'll start talking again, or 10 past 11, well, let's say 11, but for the coffee break. And I'll try and answer any questions that happen then. It's a kind of virtual coffee break anyway, isn't it? But so steps 1 to 3. So included in step 3, step 1 is getting your workspace set up. Step 2 is your environment, I should say. Step 2 is loading and building the code, and step 3 is building a Jenkins pipeline. So this is just a couple of slides to remind you what Jenkins is for those who haven't come across it or haven't used it. We're talking about continuous integration, continuous delivery. It does explain all of this in the notes you follow when you do the labs, but we also know that there's another kind of pipeline available in OpenShift 4 called Tecton pipelines, but we will be creating Jenkins pipelines. The Jenkins file is a file that sits alongside your code and has a set of build steps in it. And Jenkins is a key or Jenkins or tools like it are a key approach to eliminating human error and preventing outages in the sort of DevOps world. Jenkins file, you will be using one, creating one, but it does look like this. And an example Jenkins pipeline, well, it's just a set of steps, as I say, it doesn't look like that. Something a bit like this will appear in the OpenShift console, and you will see as you go through it as the build steps progress. But this is a schematic, if you like, an idea of what it is. There are various steps, and the steps can include things like testing, running SonarQube analysis, compiling to a jar file, deploying to OpenShift, and so on. Jenkins will help you automate your pipeline, which is a set of build steps or steps that get run when you build, and it makes things easier to automate. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking now. And as I say, we could start again. I will start talking again around 11. But now is the time to start with the exercises. And I'm suggesting steps 1 to 3. Obviously, I can't make you stop at step 3. If you're fast, you might get through it quicker. If you've done any of this sort of thing before, you might get through it a bit quicker. But the idea is that you should be able to now at least start with the exercises. So good luck with that. I will give my voice a rest, and I will probably take the slide down so I can look at the chat, and I'll stop sharing. I'll come back again, start talking again around 11. Okay, so we're recording again. So this is a reminder of the agenda. We're now at the introduction to debugging and monitoring. So let's just put up the next slide. Okay, so during the next couple of sections, which is sections 4 and 5, so you've now you've built an application using Che. You've been able to rebuild it and control the build using a Jenkins, an ephemeral version of Jenkins running in a container within your OpenShift, and you're now going to do a little bit of debugging and a bit of monitoring. So obviously, key features of these kinds of automated builds, and also the things that make the developer's life a bit easier, is debugging, the ability to debug live code. And we're using a product called Quarkus, which is a new or newish OpenShift product, which it's open source, but it's basically it's a small Java framework, very small memory footprint, reduced boot time, and similar to Spring. So you can similarly, I mean, obviously you could use Spring Boot anyway for these kinds of applications, and so you might be more familiar with that. But this will introduce you at least to Quarkus in step 4, and you'll see how you can use it to support sort of live debugging as the developer. The other important thing which is useful in a CI/CD type approach is the ability to monitor, and particularly when you're using a distributed containerized development approach, containerized architecture with microservices, tracing and monitoring becomes very important, because you know, you've got everything running, small chunks of code running in containers, but they are communicating with each other. And it's sometimes an issue to try and work out exactly where the code has got to, or where particular problems are arising. So the ability to monitor and trace is very helpful. And in this next set of labs, or the next part of the labs, you'll be setting up Jaeger tracing to work with your cool store monolith. And we'll also introduce you to Prometheus and Grafana. Both of those are sort of easily built into OpenShift. And in these next section of the labs, you will see how Prometheus and Grafana can be used to monitor the components in a cluster and visualize your data running around your containerized application using dashboards. So at that point, I will stop talking again. I will pause the recording and once again start monitoring the chat more. But we're now talking about steps 4 and 5 of the labs, which is debugging and monitoring. I will call everyone together again at around 12:15, 12:20 to finish off the session. So hopefully you can enjoy the next set of labs. Okay, so I'm now recording again. And one or two of you still having a few issues with the labs. I noticed a couple of different things. A lot of people had a problem with the environment kind of disconnecting. So that needs to be occasionally, you might need to restart the workspace. That seems to have worked for most people. That's obviously one of the downsides of running your development environment in the cloud. So it's swings and roundabouts to some extent, because you're obviously getting the benefits that everyone can share a pre-built development environment, i.e. you can have a minimal environment running in the cloud hosted in containers. But of course the disadvantage is that you can't, if you have it on your desktop, you know how to sort of give it a kick to get it working. We do have Ewan Crosby on the call, and if we're still having some issues, he might, if you post to the main chat, you might be able to have a quick look if there's anything that isn't fixed by a restart. But in the meantime, I'll just continue with these slides, these last few slides, which is really the wrap up. So I basically promised I would talk a bit about Boost for OpenShift, which is an Estafet product, or a product originally developed by Estafet, which is an attempt to implement a DevOps delivery process. It gives you an example, something that you can use out of the box to get going with a DevOps type approach. so simple to use, cheap to implement. The idea is to eliminate the blockers, the inefficiency, and the friction points when building new projects with automation and so on. And obviously, what we've been covering here on this course is the same kind of thing, which is, how do you use containers? How do you build a container-based approach? And how do you write a DevOps style of coding? And Boost is solving some of those same problems. It works with OpenShift, and it's at the moment we're also looking at how to extend it just to sort of raw Kubernetes as well. I'll just see if I can bring the next slide up. For some reason it doesn't want to come. Okay, there it is. Hopefully everyone can see this. So basically the idea is to make the whole delivery process more efficient for devs, QAs, architects, user groups, security and ops. And the idea is to push everything through from one environment to the next by minimizing the blockers and the places where things hold up. So Boost is kind of a pre-built, if you like, example and a set of approaches, if you like, that you can use. And it's a containerized microservice example with a set of tools that help you to create your pipeline. Okay. For some reason page down's not working, so there we go. So the idea is it's a framework providing you with these starting points for your DevOps approaches, and basically it has a product specific framework and also it's going to evolve over time with newer services, and there's a catalog of roles, and it comes with sort of Jenkins kind of pipelines as part of the product. So the idea is that, take it, you work with it, you can extend it, but it gives you an early start, if you like, to your sort of containerized microservice DevOps journey. So it's free. It's written by Estafet or developed by Estafet, but intended to be open source and available. Should be easy to adopt and adapt, and should help you with continuous delivery from day one. So there's a lot of overlap with what we're talking about here, and there's a lot of sort of pre-built stuff in there, and it's deployed and updated as an operator in OpenShift. So that again makes it easier to bring into your environment. And obviously, we're giving this to the world to help people get started with OpenShift and DevOps. And we're also obviously willing to help people adopt it. So as we've said before, it's easy to adopt. It comes as an operator. It also means that it can be first deployed and then later updated. It's open source, as I already mentioned. We'd like it to become something that other people can commit to as well. And if you want to know any more about this, by all means, contact Estafet. We can help you. We can talk you more about how to do it. We can provide people to come in and talk to your company about it. Yeah, it's there for you to use if you want to try it out for yourselves. Back to this Red Hat and Estafet workshop. So we're just coming to the end of it now. There are a couple of special offers that Red Hat are offering to people that have been on this workshop. So there are a couple of offers. One is offering free cores of the OpenShift container platform for 12 months with a year of support. There's also an offer on training, so you can have 50% discount if you want to do the OpenShift Administrator course, or a 50% discount on the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Containers exam. So extra, if you like, advantages for having been on this. And if you want to know any more about any of those things, you can contact Estafet. Just a reminder also that you can still use these your workshop environment. So I think Ewan confirmed to me earlier that it was until Saturday afternoon. So these workshop workspaces that have been spun up for the training side of things stay running for another 24 hours or so. So by all means, finish off the labs, and by all means, if you want to, you can try other things in there. So that's the end of the workshop. It's about 12:30, which is when we plan to finish. There is another run of these workshops on the 11th of June. We'll either run this one or we'll run a different module. So this will to some extent depend on registrations we get for that second one. We can run, we're thinking at this stage we would run module 2 again for different people, but we could run one of the other modules that were mentioned on that second or third slide. And you'll see, that when you first open the environment, there are those 4 different modules. So we could go through one of those modules next time, but we haven't really decided yet. All I could think of to say now is thank you very much for participating. That is the end of the workshop. I'm going to stop the recording.